This is real change. Peace, brother. I've got a right to silence when all I want is peace. Anything you do say is used against you.
Remember me if you were at the last meeting, telling you what I did with the food for the homeless and showing you some of the pictures of the food that I get from Morrison's. What happened at the last meeting is I asked everybody to bring a packed lunch, and we asked people to donate the packed lunches so that we could go and give them to the homeless, which was basically where the street kitchens grew from, isn't it? The Leeds one.
Absolutely.
So unfortunately that night I got a call from Morrison saying you've got to be back in Leyland for 9 o'clock to pick up 28 boxes. So I shot off back with all the sandwiches, but there are some pictures coming on in a minute, hopefully, of when I went into Preston the day after and gave all the sandwiches out, spoke to the homeless people there, asked them what they needed. We were going to go into the Preston area, but obviously we decided that we wanted to set up a main base in Leeds to start the street kitchen. So the pictures will appear when they appear. So what happened is Toddy and Brett, where are you, Brett? He's there. Hiding. Toddy and Brett came down every Wednesday for a few weeks. Saw how I did things, saw the amount of food that they had to cook, the boxes that I pick up from Morrison's. It isn't a couple of hour job, it's literally 2 days out of my week. I go and pick the boxes up. I've only got a little car, so I usually have to do a couple of trips to get all the stuff home. Then I have to go through the boxes. And we sort out, don't we? We split everything.
Yeah.
You tell them a bit about
Yeah, getting the boxes, just the weight content, and that's pretty hard graft as it is, transporting from one place to another. And like Lou says, it's 2 trips there. And then she's got to wait, if there's delivery trucks in the way, she's got to wait till they're out of the way, and then she can go in. So, but once these boxes have been picked, there's all sorts in it. There's fruit, veg, breakfast bars, there's chocolate bars, crisps, drinks,
baked beans,
all sorts.
teas.
So,
you sort of look what you've got. This week I got a box full of capers and olives, and I'm like, what am I going to do with that? So I've no idea. I'm still working that one out. So Toddy and Brett came down for a few weeks. They came to the street kitchen in Blackburn, saw how we did that. And then what we did, once you pretty much figured out, we decided, we met Hayden, there's Hayden in Leeds with his group, and we decided that the best night was a Sunday night. Yeah, there were a gap for Sunday, and Sunday being obviously a Sunday, it worked well, for me, at the end of the day, going down to Blackburn, going down to Leyland, and then from Lewes all the way through to Blackburn, the people that we were meeting down there, I'd say 30% of the people had a drink or drug dependency. The rest were pretty clean. Yeah. But within that, there's the spice issue, which I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with what spice is. It's the in drug now, and they get absolutely off their heads that much, where they're frothing at the mouth and collapsing and all sorts of stuff, and it's pretty scary stuff. Yeah, we had one incident in Blackburn where everybody queues up. We're pretty organised, and one of the lads just went down, literally collapsed, and he was having fits and he was frothing at the mouth. It's really bad. You don't know what this drug does until you actually see it for yourself, and I've been a nurse and it shocked me. So he was in the recovery position, and we waited 1 hour and 10 minutes for the ambulance to come, because they don't care about, if they know somebody's homeless, they're not going to bother. And it is really bad. We've seen it a few times in Leeds as well. We went, I think it was a couple of weeks later, we went to, what's the place at the back, Salvation Army, to drop a load of food off that were left over.
and there were a guy against the railings one day, and he were in a really bad way. But if anybody knows what spice is, a lot of it's been introduced into the prison system. So it's getting into the prison system, and they're getting absolutely off the red. So when they're being released, if they've got nowhere to live, that continues, and then it encroaches on the other people that are homeless as well, and it's pushed onto them. But pretty much what it is it's a tranquiliser, is what spice is. That's the makeup of it. It's to transport whales and sharks from one place to another, because you can't have a big shark kicking its tail about in an HGV. It closes the motorway off. So what it does is it closes the central nervous system down, and what they do is they're putting this into like a cannabis substitute kind spliff, if we can put it that way. They smoke it and they just get absolutely wired, and then the central nervous system starts closing down. So that's what we're up against on the streets quite a lot. Hayden will back that up as well. He's seen he's seen more than we have, really and truly. But it's a tranquiliser, and that's what they're using to escape reality. There's one individual that we meet all the time, and he's constantly on it, but you can smell it. And the reason why they call it spice is because it's spicy. You can smell it emits from them. But that's pretty much where we are. Jason, have we got these pictures sorted, please?
We have,
Is he getting there? Good.
Also what happens as well, what people don't understand, they think if somebody's actually got a bed and they're in a hostel, that's the end of the story. But what happens, especially in these private hostels, they get a certain allowance from the government. So say somebody gets a room, that hostel will get, just to grab a figure, they'll get £500 a month, if not more. If that person has mental health issues, they'll get more money. But then, because they've got an address, that person can then get a benefit, they can then claim because they've got an address. So they'll get £120 a fortnight, but the hostel will take £50 out of that a week for their bedroom. So they're left with £10 a week. So it's not a case of you're just going to get into a hostel and you'll be all right. It's a never-ending cycle. And how are these people going to save money up? And how are they going to be able to put a deposit on a flat or buy food or buy clothes? So what we find is we're not just dealing with homeless people, we're dealing with people that are in some sort of accommodation that can't afford to live, can't afford to buy shoes, can't afford to eat. And we have also families that come down, haven't we?
Yeah, there's a group every week that come down. There's about 4 or 5 of them, isn't there? And they come down and they take the packed lunches away, which we put bags together and what have you, and they take that away, which is going to last them a day or two. But unfortunately, on the Monday, there's Leeds Homeless Partnership, so it's in that scenario, what we give them in hot food-wise on the day, they're getting a packed lunch, which takes them through to the next day, which then they can then return back to Leeds City Centre, or should I say, City Square, and they can come and have more hot food on a Monday with a packed lunch again. So it's pretty much we're doing exactly the same routine as what these guys do, and it does help them out. They come, they're nice, they're polite. We've had to set sort of like standards now, because we are getting it sometimes where they're coming down and they've had a drink. We're having to say to them now, listen, if you come down and you've had a drink, you ain't getting served, because we've got to put that ruling in there, because at the end of the day we ain't just got Leeds City Council watching us, we've got the police watching us, we've got obviously the restaurants that are nearby, which we've got a really good rapport with. I mean, they fill our flats up every week, yeah, without fail. There's no issue, but we're trying to keep the trouble and the noise down, which is, it gets a bit sort of like, you know, funny at times, but the majority of the people that come are on their best behaviour, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, they know that at the end of the day, if there's any messing about, any kicking off, we'll just say to them, we're packing up and we're off. And Hayden's one of the ones that's kicked that off quite before we set up, so they sort of like already know that if they do mess about, they're spoiling it for all of them. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I think you picked well. Sort your pictures.
So anyway, what we did, going back to going into Leeds, I said that I would give you 6 weeks, didn't I?
Yeah.
Because it's a long way for me. I'm from Leyland, and I was cooking the food, doing the boxes. My poor car, honestly, I'm surprised its wheels didn't buckle under the weight. But it was a lot of work. I had a bit of a break last week, didn't I, 2 weeks ago, and these guys pulled it together, and they've really got everything now in place. There's people cooking, there's people bring different bits. I still support them with food. I've got food in the car for you, by the way, for tomorrow. But yeah, now it's set up and we've got this one done. We're then going to move on somewhere else, which starts on Monday. So we've got 2 new places that we're going to from now on. I won't be coming up to Leeds. I'll come up every couple of weeks and give you a bit of time.
Yeah,
But no, what we're going to do is, first of all, we've got Liverpool. George, Liverpool. We'll be working with George in Liverpool, setting a street kitchen up with him. We're just trying to get a group of people together at the minute, and we're going to have a bit of a walk round, aren't we, George, and see what the area's like and weigh that up. We're also, Monday night, we're going into Blackpool. We're meeting the Blackpool Gazette, who are going to do a bit of an article on us, try and get us some local people who want to come in and help. The situation in Blackpool is absolutely dire. It's really, really bad. There is not one street kitchen, not one outreach, and it's got one of the highest homeless problems, and they do nothing. There's the Salvation Army, and there's a couple of churches that do, they do food, but the awful thing is that you go in and you say, can I have some food, or I need a sleeping bag, and they say, go into that room and do an hour's class on God, not knocking religion, but you've got to go and do an hour's class about religion before you can get anything, and I think that's wrong. Because I don't think anybody should have religion rammed down their throat. You know, everybody's entitled to what they do. So it is a major issue. We've spoken to quite a few people in Blackpool. I am going to be working with somebody, Sandra, an ex-friend of... Paula. The Sandra bits to come. I'm ahead of myself. Paula, yeah, she used to work with Hayden. She's absolutely brilliant. She's already been doing a lot of research for us. She knows the score because she worked with Hayden's outreach in this street kitchen. So I know at least I've got somebody who lives in the area. She's been around, she's spoken to homeless people, and we have an idea what we're going to do, where they're going to be, because in Leeds, if you're homeless, the police will give you a yellow card and you'll be kicked out of the area, and if they catch you twice, you'll get a red card. Hayden will tell you more about that when he speaks, but they've started to implement this in Blackpool now, so we're going to have to tackle that. So nobody's giving sleeping bags, nobody's giving any help at all, so watch this space. That's where I'm going to be with Sandra, working with Real Change and with Hayden's group as well, Homeless Partnership.
Is that this coming Monday?
Monday, yeah. This. If you, I'll find out for you. Are you on Facebook? The Book of Faces. If you can get in touch with me, I'll let you know. And if you'd love to come along and help us, that would be absolutely brilliant. Brilliant, mate. All right, love. So that's Blackpool. Liverpool, like I said, is the next one. We're going to be doing both of them from now on, but like I said, we've got to actually go and have a walk round. Me and George are going to pack some butties up and have a little bit of a walk round, talk to the homeless people there and see the best way to do that. Another thing that I'm also working on, I'm going to bore you a little bit, I just want you to understand the change that we've all made since the last meeting. We understand that there's a lot of people who go to food banks that are families that have no food. Now, you can't just target the homeless, you've got to understand that austerity is crippling everybody at the moment. So I'm setting up a scheme, starting in my local area, working with the food banks and the police and the council, where they will come to us once a fortnight and we'll do the same as we do in the street kitchen. Everybody who goes to the food bank will get a ticket, and then they can come to us. We've got the use of a church hall. They can come to us once a fortnight, where we will provide them with meals and whatever we get from Morrison's, you know, tins of soup, whatever, fresh fruit, the lot. So that's something that we're going to start in the next few weeks locally as well. So there's a lot of real changes happening in the future. But yeah, it's all good. It's all good stuff. So, you know, when the last meeting when we were saying this is what we were going to do, we don't talk the talk, we walk the walk, we make it happen. So watch this space because the next couple of months is going to be awesome with 2 new street kitchens and this new scheme with the food banks. If anybody, obviously the next meeting we'll be looking for somewhere else. So if anybody wants us to come into your area or you have a team that would like to work with us, then let me know and we'll make sure that we come and we do the same thing wherever you...
Help run a group called Leeds Homeless Partnership. We started in January, December. From there, what we've done is we've progressed, but like we say, it's not all about feeding for us. We know that it's people falling through the cracks. We need aftercare, we need relapses when they're coming out of obviously the drug rehabilitations. And what we're basically about is that we go out there and we do outreaches and we do them 3-4 times a week, but we own a street kitchen and this street kitchen is starting to get to where people are starting to not take the mick with us, but we're starting to get people who are coming down and they're starting to see our good, what we're doing as good nature and they're starting to take the mick out of it. So what we've introduced is we've introduced ID cards. So these ID cards are mainly for the genuine homeless. So what we're doing is we're going out on the night time, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and making sure we find the people who are dubbing down. These people who are dubbing down, obviously, they're going to come to our group, we're going to get the priority over the people who, you know, the less needy, the people who've got a house. Yeah, we're happy to feed them, we're happy to give them clothing, but obviously we need to get to the people who are actually on the streets. So we brought these ID cards out, and in the process of bringing them out, I had a meeting with St George's Crypt last week. When I introduced them into St George's Crypt, they were already out on there. Yeah. I reproduced them, they were in production and they were going to be printed back there. As soon as I introduced them to the St George's Crypt, I found out yesterday that St George's Crypt are now taking my idea away and they've actually started putting these into production themselves. So, we're starting to go down the route where we're going to try and obviously work with them, but obviously we don't want to profit them. And what we're thinking that we're going to do is take it away as a business idea for them and sell it to other organisations all around England if it works. It's started to work with our group on it. Absolutely. You know, and what it is we got homeless coming down to us at the very beginning, but then it started drifting away because obviously the homeless were coming down and seeing people who wasn't homeless, taking their stuff, so they didn't want to engage with these people. They was honest with me, they said to me, listen, I'm going to start fighting, and if we start fighting at your cause, obviously you're not going to like us, you're going to stop it straight away, so these people stopped coming down. So we've got to the root cause now, and we're like, right, hold on, these homeless people are now drifting away, and we're set up for homeless people. So we've gone back to the root cause of, right, listen, if we put these cards into place, the homeless are going to start coming through slowly, but they're starting to come back and getting the trust off us. You know, I've got a lot of trust on the street with these guys. This is what the Crypt, and obviously the police are not understanding. The Crypt is the only organisation that's out there that when you get a yellow card and a red card, and you need to use amenities and you need to get food or you need to get clothing or you need somewhere to stay, you have to go back into the city centre. So obviously you're on your dispersal, then you're going to get arrested, taken to court and £100 fine. So it's all a catch-22 for these guys. Give them a 48-hour ASBO, don't they? Yes. So the same thing with the yellow card is that you get given a yellow card and it never wipes off. So it doesn't matter if you come into the centre in 3 months' time, you're still on that yellow card. So what it is you get a yellow card and it's on your record for life, really, isn't it? Right. And it's on your record. So from there you get a red card, you get taken to court and fined £100. These guys don't have.
I'm just a yellow card, Carl, straight away, Carl. Yes. What? Can I interrupt? Yes, yeah. We had a situation out there, I think we're 2 weeks back. We're setting up on the Monday. We go down and outlet Hayden. Hayden comes on a Sunday. He's ever present, we're ever present, or we try to be. We seen 4 police officers around one of these guys. Went up, we instantly knew it right with Carl. So we've gone up, and this guy's genuinely homeless. He's in the doorways. He takes a tent every 3 days. Yeah. And these coppers around him, you know, hawking him basically. Aiden's gone straight over. I've gone straight over. The coppers are going, "You've been yellow carded, Carl." So Carl's turned round and he said to him at that minute, he went, "I ain't got it." And he said, "Carl, have you got a yellow card?" He went, "No, I ain't got one." And copper turned round and said, "That's because you won't accept it." Yeah. I turned round at that given time straight away and I said, that means he has not been served.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if he hasn't been served, that means at the end of the day you've got no jurisdiction.
Nothing.
He turned round the cop and went, "It don't work like that." And I went, "Yes, it does." I went, "Now he's."
What did he
I
do?
said, "Now Carl is in our jurisdiction and in our duty of care."
And what did he do?
The cop had turned round and they went. Now, in normal scenarios, they would have arrested him if he hadn't have had that little bit of experience, that little bit of knowledge around him. But he held his own because he didn't accept the card, and that's the big thing. He ain't accepting that contract, and that's what it's about. But anyway, jumping back over to Hayden.
So with these ID cards, the police have actually started to relax, haven't they?
Yeah.
With the homeless. The homeless are telling us now, but the police are starting to walk past them on the streets, even though they're sitting down. They're just walking past them. If they see these cards, they're walking past them because obviously we've had meetings upon meetings with the police. And then we had a problem with Leeds bid. I don't know whether you've heard of it. Basically, these guys are the new guys with the hats who are in Leeds City Centre. They're probably in every single city across England. But in their job description, it actually says that they're here to clean out and to, contact relevant agencies and organisations and to contact the police of rough sleepers or professional beggars in Leeds, which obviously we don't condone professional begging, do it at all.
No. It goes on. I mean, there's fair fews, but we pretty much know who the professional beggars are, because what they do is when we approach them with a carrier bag full of food and toiletries, I don't need it, don't I live like a king, you know. And they are out there. Don't get me wrong, but the police and Leeds Bid and Leeds City Council use that as an excuse, basically to shut these other homeless people down. What they're doing is they're labelling all of them as beggars, and it's wrong. And one of the big things is, it's about these beggars, take money tax-free. And we've already had one of the coppers turn around and say it's not fair that we're working 50 hours a week and we pay our taxes and they're picking 500 quid a week up. That's an issue. So because the police work for the Crown, if we all know who the Crown is, the Crown basically employ the police, therefore at the end of the day the Crown is associated with HMRC, it's associated with all of it. It's all about their revenue coming back in from the people that they're giving out. And because these beggars are getting money tax-free, which I don't condone, but if that's what they choose to do, then that's up to them. And if people want to give them the money, that's fine. But I've found a lot of issues from the police, they're not happy, and they nearly put the phone in, didn't they, that day when we were talking.
They did.
When he turned around and he's like that, and I says, but that's from your perspective, that this guy who's getting this money on the streets not paying tax, and you've got an issue with that. That's your own private issue. You shouldn't be using it in the power or authority that you think you've got to push this onto these people because they're not paying tax and you are. Why don't you leave your job and go begging? And then you ain't got this issue of paying the tax man. But anyway, that's off being track.
So what we did was, I arranged a meeting with Leeds Bid, and when I arranged a meeting, I didn't get just a manager. I got the CEO of Leeds, I got the CEO of London, and I got the managing director. I went with Brett from Real Change, and from there I put up a solution to him. I said, to save you resources and to save you policing time, instead of calling police and relevant agencies to come and move these, obviously give me a yellow card and red card to move these homeless people on, why can't they ring me, let me get into town, let me engage with these homeless people, and because I've got the trust, let me move them on out of the city centre. So they're not getting a yellow card, they're not getting a red card, and the police are not tied up with all the paperwork going back to the station when there's more important crimes out there to go deal with. So what Leeds did then was, Brett can vouch for me that it wasn't the big CEO who wanted to take it on, it was his ambassadors. His ambassadors went, that would work perfect, because obviously they're dealing with homeless people when they're there to give information to people on the street. You know, they're there to introduce people into the city centre. So they've started to trial this now. So they've took my number, they're emailing me regularly. Brett can vouch for me, can't you, Brett? I'm starting to have regular meetings with them. So if there is homeless destitution on the street, they're going to start ringing me, they're going to get in contact with me, and I'm going to make sure that I'm there within, I said to them at the moment, 40 minutes, but right now we're trying to build a hub. If we can build a hub on the perimeter of the town centre, it's not a catch-22 for them. You know, these guys, when they get a red card, when they get a yellow card, and they need someone or they need a shoulder to cry on, they're going to be able to come straight to our hub. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get right on the perimeter line. So obviously when they get kicked out of the town centre, they can come straight to us. We're hopefully going to get somewhere where it's got a couple of bedrooms in there, so obviously it's going to be like a halfway house. You know, we're not going to be charging these guys a ridiculous amount of money. We're not going to be charging them at all. But what we're trying to do is now is get the council on board. the council have been for 6 months not engaging with me. They've been sending the crib down, they've been sending Leeds bid down, they've been sending everybody else to deal with their problems. So what I've done is I've gone straight on Facebook, I've made a video, and it's probably had about 2,000-3,000 views in a couple of days, and from there I emailed the council. As soon as that, they've got a homeless strategy that's in place, but it actually ran out in 2015. So right now we don't have a homeless strategy in place. So what are they running off? They're running off a 2015 strategy, but in their strategy it says that they've got a legal responsibility from 2003 to make sure that no homeless person needs to stay on the streets more than one night in Leeds City Centre. So I'm starting to address this with them, you know, and what I'm doing is I'm sending it in quotations. So every time I send an email, I'm sending one of their quotations in the email with it. So I'm sending, it's your legal responsibility. As soon as that, I got a response within 2 minutes saying, right, we'll have a meeting next week. But when I get a meeting, I've had a meeting with Brett last week with the Crypt, didn't we? Leeds Food Aid Network. And then I've got another meeting with the Crypt on Tuesday from trying to steal my idea for the ID cards and put them into production. But then when I go on Wednesday with the lease housing options, they want to bring the Crypt with them to answer their questions. So what I'm saying here is that obviously you can see that Leeds City Council have got a say in their policy, and these guys answer every question that these guys have. I even sent them an email back saying, I don't understand why the Crypt are going to be there with you. I've already got a meeting with the Crypt on Tuesday, so why do they need to answer your questions on a Wednesday? And all I got back was, superb, see you then. You know, these guys know that I'm about exposing people, and I will go out there and expose them. And the least that they say to me is better for them in a way. But every meeting we go to, they're always asking us if I've got a camera on me, making sure I'm not being recorded. Because these guys know that, you know, at the moment we're damaging their reputation. Me and Brett were sat in a meeting with Leeds Bid with 3 CEOs, managing directors, one from London, one from Leeds, and did not Brett beg us to stop doing what we were doing? They were saying that we was damaging their reputation. These guys are multi-million-pound business, and we're damaging their reputation. And why we're damaging it is because we're giving it away for free. They don't like the term free. And when I first started this in January, they wanted to use me as an umbrella system. Don can vouch for me. They wanted to use me to refer everyone to their kind of services. So when they got let down, they fell through the cracks. They can go, Leeds Homeless Partnerships did that, Leeds Homeless Partnership did that, they referred you, he referred you. And I said no. So no one wanted to meet me, no one wanted to work with me. And I was called, Don can vouch for me, a Nazi organisation within the Leeds City Centre. A Nazi organisation. Was I Don? Because I was giving everything away for free. So obviously we've gone back to the drawing board.
So it's the labelling again.
Yes.
They've come in with the labelling and basically to break it down and get you in that situation. Every meeting Hayden's had, by the way, I was supposed to go, but something happened to stop me going. I don't think these people are ready for me yet, because when I get in there and I sit with them, they're just getting boxed off, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to box them off. Everything that they say, I'm going to bring it back to where it needs to be back, and it's back to the people. Stop reciting shit off pieces of paper to me. I'm not interested. Yeah, come and talk to me, the man, because we're all men, we're all women. Yeah, and that's it. And this is where people are in a situation where all these authorities think they've got some God-given right, and I'm like, you know, but I don't think they're ready for me yet. But go on, Aidan, sorry.
The good thing about what we've done at the moment is like, when I first started, the council told me that I had to refer everything through them. So 24-hour emergency, ring them, I can refer everything through them and they'll deal with everything. Every person I give them, they didn't do nothing with. I'd probably give them one night in St George's Crypt, and after that they didn't help them at all. So what we did, we did our own research. So I went every single hostel in Leeds City Centre. I went, well, in the suburbs, didn't we, Dawn? And what I've got now is I've got every single referral pack for every single hostel. I self-refer now. I've got a hostel on board called Bracken Court. I don't know whether you've heard of it. It's one of the biggest hostels in Leeds, but they've got self-independent flats. So when you go there, for the first couple of nights, you'll be in shared accommodation. But obviously, that's just so they can assess you, make sure that you're not going to hurt yourself and that. And then from there, you've got self-contained flats where you've got your own bedroom, you've got your own living area, you've got your own kitchen, you've got your own shower facilities. You know, and this is how to get them back into society. But when they get into the hostel, they're classed as not homeless because they've got a roof over their heads. But these guys are only in a hostel for 6 months. So yeah, they get the priority air, but then they don't get the actual support that they do need. So what we're trying to build in, and like obviously the woman at the back was mentioning, but it's not all about feeding these guys. It's not all about going out there and feeding them. It's about the aftercare and it's about the relapse. So what we're trying to build is we're trying to build a structure where we are the start of it. So we do all the paperwork, we do all the self-referrals, we do everything that they need doing. Then when they get onto the detox program or whatever program they need to go onto, the second part's not done by us. So it's done by a third-party organisation, let's say Forward Leeds for drug rehabilitation. And then when they come after that, when they come out of that, it's obviously the aftercare and the relapse. That's our support then, what we're going to set up. So it's a three-part stage. We deal with the first part, the organisations deal with the second part, and we pick them up for the third part. And that's what we're trying to get in place, because it's all about the aftercare and the relapsing. We know that these people are in there, they're in there for what, 13 weeks. Some people are in there for a year. You know, some people have got to do 12 months and give a bit of work back to these organisations to obviously get on better, obviously to get off their detox. But obviously if we can pick them up as soon as they come out of that environment, and we can give them that constant 12 to 18 month support, that's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to obviously build a hook for it. A lot of people don't know this at the moment because obviously we kept it to ourselves, but we have got a company on board who's actually given us a little bit of funding, not much.
Take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something that'll make you change your mind. Have you seen the old man outside the Seaman's Mission? Memory fading like the metal ribbon that he wears. In our winter city, the rain cries little pity. One forgotten hero and a world that doesn't care. Let's go! I can tell me sun will shine. Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something that'll make you change your mind. Sorry about the whistling. It's very asthmatic. Okay, what do you want to do?
Stage is yours.
Stage is mine.
You got another. You got another.
I've got another one.
Another song and another song.
Another song. Where's Carly? Where?
Voice from the gods.
I thought you really had got off shoplifting. Come here. Scummy.
Stick in on
I treat my staff really shit. Which one? The Elder. Edwina wants. Witch's Tree. Elder. Yeah. Okay. We have some pagans in the audience. I write songs about trees while my mates are out playing football and privets and stuff. Okay, we'll have a go with this. Not do it with the band, but we'll try the Witch's Tree, just for my mate Edwina. If you haven't got any money for food, by the way, hang around with her, because you'll be full all the time. Plantain and have a drink of that, George. What is it? It's nettles and dandelions. Makes your fucking teeth yellow, but it's nice. Yellow. Makes it yellow. How's this go? Okay. Anyway, folklore, the Witch's Tree. It's the Elder Tree. And I write all this thing about lost tree lore and stuff, and I love all that kind of stuff. And I'm glad you've asked me, because we do need to practice, because we'll sing it at solstice next week.
Will there be 7 of us?
Oh yeah, and there'll be flutes and guitars and big noises. sit beneath the witch's tree. The elder mother talks to me. Journey to the other side. The fragrance takes me there. Old lady standing wise and bent. Midsummer's night, a burial scent. The other world so near, so far. Will you live to bathe? I sleep beneath the witch's tree. The road stones watch over me. The fairy dance like full moonlight. I watch them as they shine. Dip and drink a wine. The birds good fortune bring, mystic healing ways I sing. You are me, very bold, dancing in a ring. Oh, build it up thy sacred word, stop and want me you should. I will give you some of mine, and I become a tree. I sleep beneath the witch's tree. Stones watch over me. The fairy dance by full moonlight. I watch them as they shine. We dip and drink a wine. The fruit and flower, the wine, the essence and the power. You head more clearly now, the path you've been missed. Old lady standing wise and bent, midsummer's night, I read your scent. Though the world so near, so far, I see beyond the veil. I sleep beneath the witch's tree. The road stones watch over me. The fairy dance like moonlight. I watch them as they shine. Woo! And drink a wine. Thank you. We've got to kind of finish early, Jason. I'm sorry, he's got to get to a gig in Liverpool. So, and anyway, I know you're running late, but anyway, thanks for having us today. I'm really pleased to be here, meet most of you, and I've just loved the call. So, that's off to these guys.
Can I have another round of applause for George? And I'm going to try again.
Carnunos Rising, the band.
There we go. Right guys, so we've got, thanks for that George, that was awesome. My foot was going lots and so was the other foot as well. Next we've got Ian Roland Crane and we're going to be talking about the referendum which is on a lot of people's mind at the moment. Are we in, are we out, are we in, are we out? I'm not going to tell you my point of view on it because it's all in there really, isn't it? Yeah, let's be right. You know, we need a fair system, we need out of Europe, and we need to sort this country out and put a fair system in place. But I'm going to leave it to the professionals, so I'd like you to put your hands together for Mr. Ian Rowland Crane.
There we go. Yes.
I wonder if you're moving up the way.
No, I'm going to stand down here. So just this. No.
How bad's that dot?
Yeah, this could work.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
A lot of stuff, but I'm going to focus on the EU. Let's do a bit of a straw poll, because depending on the answer here, I'll just shut up and sit down. So, how many people are contemplating voting to remain in the EU? That was easy. Okay, good night, everyone. Okay. Now, all the polls are suggesting that the Brexit campaign is starting to take a bit of a lead in the polls. I mean, even suggesting that the Brexit lead may be as much as 10 points, but don't get too carried away because the government is already starting to put in place the means to manipulate the vote. As I'm sure you saw in the last couple of days, the website crashed in the last 24 hours where people could register online. So they extended it for 24 hours, and in that 24 hours, nearly 500,000 people allegedly registered. So basically, this is all being set up for manipulation, probably through the postal vote. But there is a distinct possibility that it may be manipulated, but not as most people think. So what I'm going to try and do over literally 30 minutes is sow some seeds with you, because the outcome may be very different to what people are anticipating. And you know, everything you've been listening to today, I think is going to become even more relevant after the 23rd, because you know it's going to be, if you like, I think a starting gun for the population of this country to start getting involved. Because if we don't get involved, then basically it's going to be taken as a mandate for the ruling parasites to destroy this country. And the only thing that, well, the only people that can stop them are basically the population of this country. So the next part of the poll is, how many people right now would actually state that you're proud to be British? Really? Proud to be British, okay?
Proud to be human.
Okay, proud to be human. Yeah. Okay, well, you know, I don't know what it is that makes us proud to be British, but you know, I've been living back in this country after more than a decade overseas. Been back in this country now for 15 years, and I have to say that the country that I came back to was very different than the country I left. And what I've seen over the last 15 years is the country go places I never imagined that this country would ever go. It was probably there at some level, and I just didn't see it. But now it's so blatant, it's just an embarrassment. Anyone got any idea what this might be? On the screen here? No? That's not my front door. The bailiffs, exactly. Well, this is a situation that occurred literally a few months ago now in the suburbs of Manchester. And this is the lady, May Appleton, with one of her 3 sons, who were evicted from their house. 82 she is. They were evicted from their house because the housing association said they were serial hoarders and that the house was a fire risk. Now, having seen the pictures of the inside the house, there was clearly a bit of a problem. But this housing association, the only way in which they thought they could deal with it was by evicting them. And thanks to a massive public outcry, they were evicted on Friday, but by the following Tuesday they were back in their house. But this is one of the implications of the privatisation of our social services, and in this case housing services. And the purpose behind this is twofold. One, it is an EU directive that all nationalised, all state-owned services are privatised. There's not one single piece of legislation that says that. It's dotted through various treaties, through various regulations and through various directives. But it's systematic, that everything that was once state-owned has to be privatised. And one of the benefits, of course, for privatising is that the private companies are not subject to the Freedom of Information Act. So if this was managed by the local authority, then the local authority would be required to respond to any Freedom of Information requests. But because it's a private housing company, it's a private-public partnership, there's no partnership, of course, it's a pure corporatist entity where those who are on the senior management team earn outrageous salaries, whilst the people who live in their houses basically just suffer at their hands, because, as I'm sure many of you can attest, the workmanship that is put into these houses is pathetic, it's shoddy, because there's only one bottom line, and that's profit, i.e. so that these people can claim as much for themselves. So this is Judith Burbage, Director of Neighbourhoods, who was the lady who took the decision that May Appleton should be evicted. So this is the state of this country right now. And that's just obviously the thin end of a very fat wedge, because we have a massive underclass, a growing underclass, and the attitude of the corporatocracy is that unless you are making a direct contribution to the corporatocracy by running on that treadmill for as many hours a day as they can possibly get you running on the treadmill, unless you are able to do that, then you are, in the words of Henry Kissinger, a useless eater. And you have no role in society. There is no justification for you sucking in oxygen that could be better used by somebody who is contributing to the corporatocracy. And that's why we see this kind of attitude in the Department of Work and Pensions. I was in a petrol station over in East Lancashire a few months ago, and we were at the coffee machine, and this lady walks up behind us, and she's wearing a DWP badge. And as I turned and saw it, I said to her, "You're very brave wearing that quite so openly." And she went, "Oh yes," and turned it round. They're embarrassed. They're embarrassed because anybody here works for the DWP? Or anybody going to admit to working for the DWP? Because basically, you literally have to put your humanity in the locker room when you go into work, because the DWP rewards the front of house people by how much they are able to sanction people, by how much they are able to retain benefits that are rightfully owed to the people that are basically making the claims. And we've all seen the cases of suicide that have been directly attributed to benefits being cut, or people that are basically fundamentally incapable of working because of their physical or mental health, and yet basically they are ruled as fit for work, and basically they just can't live with it. And this is our society, this is our caring society. And why is this happening? Because we, the collective we, are letting it happen. It's mission creep. We hear of one or two situations like that, but now it's literally endemic. And it's, thank goodness for groups like Real Change and Beat the Bailiffs that are actually getting out there and challenging the system and trying to somehow, little by little, redress the excesses of this pernicious society. And I'm sorry, but right now I find very little that makes me want to say that I'm proud to be British. When I was travelling the world 20 odd years ago, and I got those big, thick passports, you know, real passports, not these red cover things. You know, yeah, there was a pride in being British. You know, that British passport basically got you sort of way through pretty much anywhere, and you know, we were treated with respect in many countries around the world. But we have no entitlement to any of that respect. You know, the devastation that this country has caused throughout the world is a legacy that, you know, we and future generations are undoubtedly going to have to live with one way or another. Much of what is occurring is being driven by an agenda that's nearly 100 years old. For this country, of course, it's 43 years old because we've been in the European Union since 1973. Edward Heath lied to take us into the European Union, or the European Economic Community as it was back then. And I readily acknowledge, you know, I fell for it hook, line and sinker. I was 18 years old. It was the first opportunity that I had to vote in that, May of 1975. And I voted to join or to remain in. I mean, we thought we were voting to join, but of course we were already in. But I voted to remain in the EEC. Because of my in-depth analysis, i.e. none, I simply fell for the rhetoric that was being pumped out. But now we have no excuse, because now, you know, we have 43 years of experience of what membership of the European Union brings, and, you know, there's still a lot of things that are not common knowledge, but need to become common knowledge. Ideally before June the 23rd, because this may well be the last opportunity that the people of this country have to remain anything that pretends to be a democracy. Because is there anybody here who thinks the EU is a democracy? Oh, good, I'm amongst a bunch of conspiracy theorists. Of course the EU is not a democracy. The European Parliament has literally zero legislative powers. It's a talking shop. It's meant to provide the media entertainment to create the impression around Europe that there is an element of consultation in this non-existent democratic process. Anybody want to tell me who makes European law? Now, we've been a member of this state for 43 years. So come on, surely somebody can tell me who initiates European law. Right, well that should be your first clue, and that, by the way, is quite possibly the first question that needs to be asked of anybody who thinks that it's a good idea to stay in. Who makes the laws? Somebody's phone going off down here? It's not mine. The reality is that officially, it is the European Commission in collusion with the Council of Ministers who initiate the European law. In reality, it's the bureaucrats, and it's the lobbyists who nurture those bureaucrats. They nurture them with bribery, money, brown paper bags. So they work out who are the influential bureaucrats, who has most clout, and then they make sure that they effectively own them. And then the bureaucrats submit, because they know how to, they submit the proposition for legislation to the European Commission, or to the Secretariat of the European Commission, and then it filters its way through, it's rubber stamped by the European Commission, the Council of Ministers. The European Parliament isn't even told what laws are being introduced. It's up to the researchers who work for the MEPs to do their own study and find out what laws are being implemented and then to debate them. But they don't get to debate them with any influence, it's just a charade. So, to vote to remain in the EU is to vote for the absolute end of any democratic process and to throw our lot effectively into the arena that's controlled by lobbyists who know how to schmooze the bureaucrats. So here's here he is, Edward Heath. I mean, the lies and the deceit this guy told are now very well documented for anybody who wants to take a look at it. Here we have the debate. And I don't think there is really any kind of demographic that's going one way or the other. Because there are, certainly I've spoken to people who are pensioners, and I've spoken to people who want to stay in, and I've spoken to people who want to come out, and the same with the youth. But there is a fundamental difference, an absolute fundamental difference. When you actually start to ask people why they want to stay in, they really don't have any substance to offer to support that decision. But when you ask people why it is that they want to leave, they can normally give you 3, 4, 5, 6 or more reasons why it is they need to leave. So the people that want to leave are clearly those, in my opinion, and I'm generalising of course, but they're clearly those people who have done the research and want to stay out because of that. So, there we go, there's the lobbyists. And do you know why Parliament is empty for much of the week? In fact, the only time in any week that Parliament is anything like full is 12 noon on a Wednesday. Do you know what happens at 12 noon on a Wednesday?
Prime Minister's questions.
Prime Minister's questions. And the reason that they won't be there is because they know damn well that a greater percentage of the population will actually watch Prime Minister's questions, either live or the snippets on the news. So of course they all want to be there. But there's no reason for them to be there, because actually even before we joined the EU, one of the criteria for membership to join the European Economic Community, as we were told it was that Britain subjugated itself to EU law. So a year before we joined the EEC, in 1972, the European Communities Act was passed, which gives decisions of the European courts precedent over British law. So the reason that Parliament looks like this most of the time is because this is just a charade. It's a charade to keep the people thinking that there is some kind of democratic process out there, when there is none. Absolutely none. It's to actually create a document, Hansard, which is, it might as well be a work of fiction. So there's the 12 noon, where they're climbing over each other to get onto the camera. But it's meaningless. It's the total charade. And the democratic process, the charade of the process, is maintained on so many levels. We have petitions, but probably the most extreme example is people handing petitions into 10 Downing Street. And coincidentally, or ironically, yesterday I watched a film I didn't even know existed. It's a new release, and it's a film called Reg Keys. And it's the story of Reg Keys, and of course standing against Tony Blair in the 2005 general election. And there's a scene in there that absolutely epitomises the ridiculous situation of these petitions that are handed into 10 Downing Street every 15 minutes of every day. It's called a social safety valve. So in other words, people can think that by signing a petition that they're going to make a difference. What happens is that the people who compile these petitions, of course, they're all very well-meaning, and then you get a group of people and you go up to 10 Downing Street at your allotted time, you get through security, you get to the gate, you've got 15 minutes. And the idea of you having 15 minutes is to make the most of the photographic opportunities or the press that are there. And then you get to knock on the door, and this guy in a crisp white shirt and a tie. I've never understood why a male willingly puts a noose around their neck every morning. Yes, the leash. Yeah, absolutely. As I said that, I was doing a quick scan to make sure nobody had a tie on. So this guy in the crisp white shirt and the tie comes to the door and he says, "Thank you very much. I'll make sure Mr. Cameron gets it immediately." And of course, as soon as the door shuts, it's in the bin. It's in the bin. You know, it served the purpose. It's the social safety valve, creating the impression that you know, there is some interest in what the public think when there's none whatsoever. And of course, the big issue for people right now is this: immigration. Now, let me make a few observations because I don't want to be taken out of context or misconstrued. The UK is a multicultural society, right? And there's no question that the UK benefits from being a multicultural society. But there is an agenda which has been in place since the 1920s to destroy the national identity of all European countries. And by the way, this is now being extended into the US. Now, the US has always been a melting pot, but the idea is to accelerate it beyond anything that any American has ever seen. This guy, anyone recognise this guy? No? This is Peter Sutherland. Peter Sutherland. Very interesting guy, but anyway, let's cut to the quick. He's an Irishman, he's former Attorney General of the Irish government, the youngest Attorney General ever to be appointed in Ireland, and following that he became a European Commissioner. He headed up the GATT talks, the General Agreement on Trade Tariffs. Because of that, he became the founding Director General of the World Trade Organization. He's former chairman of BP, he's still chairman of Goldman Sachs International. He was on the board of the Royal Bank of Scotland when it collapsed. He was asked to leave at that point, with a big payoff. So a very well connected individual. And he gave an interview to the BBC on the 21st of June 2012, where he stated categorically that the EU should undermine national homogeneity. And he was following this up after giving a presentation in the House of Lords, where he said, "We still nurse a sense of our homogeneity and difference from others, and that's precisely what the European Union, in my view, should be doing its best to undermine." This is not just in this country, it's every country. Sarkozy, when he was president of France, actually went on TV and said it was a national responsibility to mix the races, and he encouraged Frenchmen to interbreed with the immigrants coming into the country. He wasn't doing it because he believed himself necessarily that was a good thing. It was the agenda that he signed up for. Mandelson himself said, "Immigrants, we sent out search parties to get them to come and made it hard for Britons to get work." Part of this agenda is to destroy the middle classes, to destroy the working classes. The whole idea is to create basically a two-class system. Effectively, the aristocracy and the technocrats, i.e. those who run the corporations, and the underclass. The underclass. More people in this country are on minimum wage than ever before. More people in this country are on 0 hours contracts than ever before. Fewer people are participating in company pension schemes than ever before. Fewer people are entitled to benefits such as sick pay or holiday pay than ever before. And the EU, which we've been a member of for 43 years, is going to protect our employee rights. Something's not right with this equation. Because the EU agenda is to undermine the working classes. Those of us in the audience who are probably 50 plus will remember a time when Very, very few people worked weekends except for probably the shops. Very, very few people worked overtime.
Women didn't work either, did they?
And women didn't work at all. And, there was no shame in being described as a housewife and mother. And in fact, it was, the whole idea was to nurture the family. That the mother nurtured the family whilst the father was able to work a flat working week of 40 odd hours, 45 hours. And on that wage, he could afford to buy a house, if it wasn't in social housing, could afford to buy a house because there was no real private rental market. It was either you bought the house or social housing. Could keep the family in food, clothing, probably afford a 2-week holiday, not overseas, maybe Clacton or Scarborough or whatever, but a 2-week holiday. But you had the basics, that's gone. That's gone. Because young people today, and I know of one in particular who's just managed to find work, but now he's working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then in a different job, 10 hours a day on Saturday and I think 7 on a Sunday, and that's just to get enough basically to keep a roof over his head and have a little bit of spending money. And then of course we have the other abomination where you've got the likes of the supermarkets paying people literally minimum wage and then them having to make up their earnings on tax credits. Basically there is nothing about this system under the EU that is working for the benefit of the people. And if we stay within the EU, that ain't going to change. In fact, it's very easy to see what the trajectory is. So the only opportunity that we have is to effectively shut this down sooner rather than later. Now this agenda, this immigration agenda, we can trace back to a specific individual. And that individual is called Count Richard Coudenhove-Kalergi. And he wrote a book, the Pan-European Manifesto, in 1922 actually. And in that book, he made the statement, he said that basically the role of a future Europe should be to undermine all national homogeneity, but there should be two elements that protect their bloodline purity, whilst everybody else is intermixed. Any idea what those two bloodline purities might be? No political correctness here, you need to be honest. One is effectively, yes, the Jews, but this is a Zionist agenda, not a Jewish agenda, it's a Zionist agenda. And the other is...
Ateists.
Ateists? You're adding to my education, sir. Tell me later. Yeah. It's actually royalty and aristocracy. The royalty and aristocracy. And Coudenhove-Kalergi in this dissertation basically said that the way in future for the traditional aristocracy, i.e. including royalty, and the spiritual elite, and that, I quote, that was his phrase, for the Jewish people, he said the traditional aristocracy and the spiritual elite should maintain their bloodline purity whilst destroying everything else and creating an underclass. Now, of course it's a perverse view. Of course it's a perverse philosophy. But that is the agenda that was created in the 1920s, and it's the agenda that's being pushed through today. And just to spell that out for you, there is a Coudenhove-Kalergi Award. And the Coudenhove-Kalergi Award is given to the European politician who is perceived to have done the most to further this agenda, to undermine the national homogeneity within their country. So it won't surprise you that some of the winners have been Angela Merkel, Rompuy, this socio-psychopathic war criminal, Anthony Charles Lyndon Blair. And if you want to know how he was controlled, then just do a little Google search, and we may have to dig through quite a number of pages but Google Charles Lyndon. Drop off his first and last name, Charles Lyndon, and you will find, yes, that he was convicted in Bow Street Magistrates Court of cottaging in 1982, and this is how this socio-psychopath has been controlled by the establishment ever since. And of course, this guy won it twice, and most recently, this guy, Jean-Claude Juncker, former Prime Minister, of course, of Luxembourg, that massive state over in the eastern side of France, and now head of the Commission. So, you know pretty much what's going to happen if we remain in the EU. It's spelled out for us in words of one syllable and by 45 years of experience. And you would think that if they're going to manipulate the vote, they would manipulate it on the basis to keep us in. But consider the possibility. I think the vote is going to be manipulated. I think they're already trying to create a situation where it doesn't need to
He was taken and damaged, yeah. And I have the proof.